From the heart of the Space City to the heart of Gen Z, welcome to Next Gen Conversation. Not Dad's Talk Radio. Ethan talks to you about the issues and events that matter to our generation. This is the Next Gen Report with Ethan Buchanan.
Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we? Welcome to the Next Gen Report. It is a pleasure to be with you. Oh boy, we have got a lot to talk about today. You know, I love Twitter, but sometimes I really dislike Twitter. It's not Twitter so much as the people on Twitter. The people on Twitter are very often just absolutely ridiculous folks. We'll dig into that a little bit later on in the show, but before we do that, I want to encourage you to follow me on Twitter at _Ethan Buchanan, Buchanan. We post a lot of great content on there. There's been quite a pickup, I've noticed. I kind of just keep track just for indexing's sake of, you know, what happens when I post something. Does it go off into the void and be forgotten, or does it actually kind of, you know, catch some wings and fly a little bit? And we've seen a little bit more of that. So it's an exciting place to be, even if there are a lot of really silly, goofy people on there. So by all means, join me in Twitter. Interact with the silly, goofy people and with me. Let's make fun of these ridiculous Democrats together. Before we dig into the silly goofiness on Twitter, we need to talk about the Democrats. And the reason I say this is because it's very important for us to recognize the honest-to-God, legitimate threat to the nation that these people are. And I don't take pride in saying that. I'm not saying that because I think it's fun or silly, or because I think it's a good way to get clicks, or even because I want it to be true. The fact of the matter is I don't want it to be true. It actually kind of upsets me that there are so many people in this country that so transparently want the country to be completely destroyed top down. And there's always going to be an element of that. Make no mistake here, I'm not a utopian. I'm not sitting here saying we should be shooting for a perfect world where 100% of the U.S. population loves the United States and wants nothing from the best for it. That would be great, but it's not realistic. It's never going to happen. There's always going to be some subset that wants to completely destroy and remake the United States. But in the past, that's been like a very extreme minority. That's been the crazy radicals. Now it's being mainstreamed. That's concerning. You should be concerned about that. And I know you don't want to spend your day constantly worried about, oh my God, is the United States going to be here in the next 20 years? But to a certain extent, as much as I hate to say it, that might be necessary. There might be a certain element of, hey, you should probably dedicate, if nothing else, your time at the polls to thinking, is the United States still going to be here in any form that's recognizable in the next 20 years? I think the biggest indication that it might not be is the fact that we have so many people in the Democrat Party, and technically it's the Democrat Socialist of America. It's its own little thing. It's its own little subgroup, but really it's not, and we'll dig into that. But I mean, these people are as radical as whoever it is wants you to believe it is, or they are. Whoever's out there, be it on Fox or Blaze Media or whatever your news source is, maybe it's here on whatever one of my amazing radio affiliates you happen to be listening to me on. Whatever they're telling you about how radical the DSA is, it's completely true. And I'll show you an example of this. This is from Blaze Media. Check this out. El Said's mom worked for a designated terror group that financed bin Laden ahead of 9/11, according to a report. So El Said, if you haven't heard of this guy, now I say that name and you think, okay, well, who's this Middle Eastern dictator that we're talking about? No, this guy's running for Senate in Michigan, and he might win. He is a either naturalized or first-generation immigrant into the United States. And he is a Muslim. He is a socialist. He does all these silly, goofy, frankly, I think they're kind of gay TikTok videos to kind of make himself just seem friendly and fun. And, oh, I'm just a Democrat socialist. Look at me. But this guy's mother apparently, allegedly financed bin Laden. Abdul Saeed, the Islamic Democrat hoping to win an open U.S. Senate seat in Michigan, is apparently not the only radical in his family. Faten Fathi El-Kami El-Said's birth mother long worked for an Islamic organization that was identified by the U.S. Treasury Department in 2004 as a specially designated global terrorist organization, reported the Midwesterner. IARA may have provided direct financial support to Osama bin Laden and, by extension, Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. The Treasury Department stated in a release at the time of the terror designation that the international offices of the Islamic African Relief Agency may have provided direct financial support to Osama bin Laden and, by extension, Al-Qaeda and the Taliban. So, this is the Department of the Treasury in 2004 saying, yeah, this organization that this lady works for is probably funding the Taliban. Probably. And just so we're all on the same page, these are the guys that did 9/11. All right? And this is in 2004. 9/11's already happened. It's not like oopsie poopsies, we didn't know. This is 3 years post 9/11. They're funding the guys, allegedly, who did 9/11. And El Said's mother worked for them. Now, did she not know? Maybe. Let's give her the benefit of the doubt and say maybe she just didn't know. And yet it still happened, allegedly. So is that really an excuse? Like, maybe you didn't know the people you worked for were allegedly funding the Taliban. But if you're in that much of a gray area, it's probably time to take a step back, right? You just have to assume, if for no other reason than in the interest of self-preservation, you have to assume that there was some degree of intentionality. And now these are the people that are going to become elected officials in the United States. Do you think his mother had zero influence on his political ideology? Do you? Because, I mean, if you do, sure, fine, you're an idiot. But come on. There's just a certain amount of self-preservation that's got to be exercised here when we look at these people and say, I don't think you want what's in the best interest of me and my country. And I don't think that because you've shown that. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Alrighty, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I've got a video here that I think does a really good job of kind of exposing the fact that the Democratic Socialists of America, they are exactly what the kind of political fearmonger types say they are. I know there's oftentimes a tendency to dismiss a lot of the kind of extreme panic about folks like the DSA, because we hear this stuff all the time. This is just normal in our politics. But I've got a video here that I think shows that this is more than just, fear-mongering. Before I show you that, I want to ask you to support our sponsor, Deus Vult lapel pins. This is a fantastic company. You've heard me talk about them dozens of times before. If you haven't bought a Deus Vult lapel pin yet, honestly, just why? Why haven't you done it? And don't tell me it's because you haven't found one you like. If you haven't found one you like, it's because you haven't searched enough yet. They've got so many different lapel pins. They're coming out with new ones almost every week. They're fantastic products. They're not overly expensive. I think $7 is the most you'll pay for a lapel pin. Oh, no, here's one that's $9. Oh, but look at that. The Augustine's Burning Heart pin. That is beautiful. I might have to add this to my collection, my own personal collection. Beautiful and ornate pins. They're a really good fashion piece. Even if you don't wear a lot of suit jackets, everybody has an occasion at least once in a while where you're wearing a suit jacket. Maybe it's a funeral. Maybe it's a wedding or a happier occasion. Maybe you just want to start dressing better at church or in your daily life, so you want to start wearing sports coats and suit jackets. Get a Deus Vult lapel pin. A suit jacket is not complete without a lapel pin. These are the best ones to get it. Use promo code NEXTPIN2026. That just tells them I sent you, and it gives you a nice 10% discount on some pins that are already high quality and not super expensive. All right, so let's talk about this. Natalie Winters, she is the White House correspondent for Steve Bannon's War Room. I don't know how his podcast has a White House correspondent. I need to get a White House correspondent. I don't have one of those. Why does he get one of those? I want one of those. But she posted this video. This is a clip from the DSA steering committee members. I don't know if this is like an internal meeting on Zoom or if they're all getting together for some sort of podcast. It kind of looks like a podcast. I'm not sure what exactly it is, but they're all here. They're amongst themselves. They get comfortable and they say the quiet part out loud. And we've talked about this in the past. They want to completely destroy America. They hate what makes us us, and they want to undo it. And that's not just me saying that. Here's them saying that. Take a listen to this. This is insane.
Goal. So the two things that we're famous for is our commitment to a program and our hatred of the United States Constitution. And what the program does is it gives us a roadmap to revolution, and it gives us the obstacle that we finally will have to get over to have a revolution, which is the United States Constitution, the basis of the United States government. And what the minimum maximum program specifically, what that format specifically gives us is that roadmap. It gives us the minimum circumstances under which we would be able to take power and govern. And it gives us the maximum program, which is the goals that we're actually aiming for. It also clarifies democracy as both the end goal and as part of the process to get there ensures the internal party democracy that we want to see in DSA. So it really wraps up the revolutionary tradition of democracy that I think socialism and abolitionism in the United States have always been a part of, and aims at a future that we can live in as a human species. Because I think absent a revolutionary democratic socialist republic in North America, we may not have a livable future.
So, I mean, there he is. He's saying the quiet part again, completely out loud. We hate the Constitution. That's what we're famous for. And he doesn't deny it. He doesn't sit there and go, look, this is how we move away from that because that's not who we are and we need to change people's minds about this. He literally just says, we're famous for it. Also, it's the obstacle to our revolution. I mean, you can't possibly say the quiet part any out louder. We hate the Constitution. Here's how we do a revolution. The Constitution is the obstacle to our revolution. If I told you this is what they were saying behind closed doors, you wouldn't believe me. If I told you they were having meetings right now, talking amongst each other about how much they hate the Constitution and how much they want to have a revolution in the United States, you wouldn't believe me. Because it sounds insane. It sounds like the type of thing that a Fox News talking head would say to scare you and get you out to vote. But they're saying it to each other on camera. You should be scared of these people. Maybe scared is the wrong word, but you should recognize the fact that they are a threat to your way of life. I've on the show in the past, I've dug through and I've shown you the actual DSA party platform, the things that they're pushing, the things that they openly say they're pushing. I went to their website. You can find the show. It's on YouTube. It's on my X page. You can go back and listen to it wherever you get podcasts. I showed you on their website the things that are like the core parts of their platform. And when they say democratic socialists, they mean it. We are not a democracy. That's for good reason. We're a republic. They don't like that. They want to be a democracy. And what that means is they can take 51 people, a bare majority, and override the other 49. That's what they're after. Your right to property is an obstacle to them. But if they can institute a pure democratic system, they can get just 51 people that are stupid enough to say you don't have a right to property anymore. And then boom, now you don't have one. These people are crazy. And they're openly saying they want things like a revolution. You need to take these people seriously. You need to take the threat that they pose to the United States seriously. And you would think that just the regular Democrat Party, well, they're not really in on this, right? They're going to push back against this. I mean, maybe a little bit, but not really. They've completely accepted this because they know that this is what gets the young people motivated. And most of the kind of mainline Democrat voters are a few years away from death and have no children. So sooner or later, they're not going to have any voters except the DSA candidates, and they know that. And so they're placating. They're giving the DSA candidates what they want. I'll show you an example of that. Here is Chuck Schumer. You know him as the senator from New York. And he's openly saying, like, look, we're a big tent party here. We don't mind the DSA guys. He's literally asked by a reporter, is the rise of the DSA good for your party? And Chuck Schumer just says, look, we're a big tent party.
And Manu.
Thank you. Is the rise of the DSA good for your party?
Look, we are a big tent party. And being a big tent party is a strength, not a weakness.
We are a big tent party. Listen, the reason we have no problem with these people that are actively and openly telling us they want to destroy the United States of America, it's because we're a big tent party, guys. We're the Democrats. We're a big tent party. We let everybody in. These people are insane. They're insane. They want to destroy the country. If this guy had any common sense, if Chuck Schumer had any common sense, he would say, no, this is not good for our party. We don't want these people in our party. On top of not being good for the Democrat Party, this isn't good for the United States because it's not. And if he was an honest person, that's what he would be saying. But that's not what he's saying because he knows that any major damage that the DSA is going to do is going to be long after he's dead. He's got, maybe if he's lucky, 20 years left in him. Maybe. I don't even know how old this guy is, but it's probably not 20 years. And so he doesn't care. He's going to get maybe another term in, set himself up real nice, retire, and then be dead in a few years. And then the DSA will come in and wreck the United States of America, completely destroy it. We'll have the People's Communist Republic of the United States, and Chuck Schumer will be dead and buried, so it doesn't matter to him at all. Good grief. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Once again, I want to ask you, if you've got a minute, if you've got some spare time, if you're not driving, take a moment and go follow me on X @ Ethan Buchanan, Buchanan. If you enjoy the show, it's a great way to support the show. It's a great way to keep up with the show, get more content from the show. We do the live stream there every Tuesday evening, 7 p.m. Well, usually about 6:45 p.m. is when we kick off. But yeah, that's a great way to stay in touch and support the show. And if you don't like the show, it's a great way to hate on me and air out all your grievances. So either way, you should go follow me. I don't mind a hate follow. That doesn't hurt me at all. So yeah, check me out there. I'd appreciate it. Now, let's talk a little bit about this beef stuff that happened over the week. If you're not on X, you may not have heard about this. This hasn't really made a bunch of national headlines, but I've seen a whole lot of talk about this on X. As we all know, food prices are still high. That's undeniable. That's a reality. You know, blame whoever you want on that. I blame, frankly, decades of chronic mismanagement of our economy and our resources, decades of outsourcing, decades of undercutting American producers, and then, of course, COVID-19 and the terrible governance of the Biden administration made all of that infinitely worse. And now Donald Trump is, to his credit, trying to pick up the pieces, and that's never a fun place to be, but frankly, you can blame whoever you want. The reality is, food prices are still on the higher end. Now, will they stay that way forever? I don't think so. I think we are making some progress, but as of right now, people are upset about it. As this report from the El Paso Times, which was then reshared by Yahoo News, makes clear. This is from July, so it's a little dated, but I think this probably still holds up. Americans think Trump isn't doing enough to lower prices, poll finds. A new poll shows many Americans believe their incomes are failing to keep pace with inflation and that the Trump administration is not prioritizing efforts to lower prices. The CBS News/YouGov survey was conducted between July 2022 and 24 and asked a sample of more than 2,100 adults across the nation. When asked if their income is keeping up with inflation, 75% of responders said no. And that's obviously true. Inflation is bananas. It is out of control. And that affects everything. Now, a lot of the gripe that we've seen about this recently has kind of been tied to the Iran war. I've seen a lot of people saying, why in the world are we going to war in Iran instead of focusing on lowering food prices? We shouldn't be bombing Iran when we can't even afford food here. We did a whole show basically about this just a couple of weeks ago, where I talked about the fact that the economy is not actually built to function successfully. It's just kind of built at this point to survive, and that needs to be addressed. And also, people are still spending too much, which is ridiculous. We've talked about all of this time and time and time again on the show. The talking point that people love to throw out is President Trump isn't even trying to actually address this issue. He's just busy bombing Iran because, Bibi Netanyahu or whoever told him to. He doesn't actually care about America. He's just taking orders from, Russia or Israel or whatever your pet country that you like to pretend controls the president is. So President Trump finally makes some, I think, notable move to actually address one of the biggest expenses, which is the price of beef. So if you're somebody who for the last 2 or 3 months has been saying Trump is doing nothing on food, you should be happy about this. If you've been complaining about the economy and how expensive things are, this is for you. So check this out. Here's the post from Truth Social. Today, I concluded a deal to substantially lower the price of ground beef for working American families. As everyone knows, under President Biden, beef prices soared at their fastest rate, and the American beef herd fell to its smallest size in modern history. As we work to rebuild this herd and help our ranchers for the next 90 days, the United States will allow up to 300,000 metric tons of product for ground beef to be imported with no out-of-quota tariff. We have a commitment that this beef will be sold at 25% below current market price. This deal will reduce prices for Americans while giving space for our great American beef herd to grow again. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald Trump. Now, Meriwether Farms, they're another beef producer. They say this is betrayal. Now, they're an American company. They're an American farm, presumably American beef, and they say this is a betrayal. Listen, I don't think it is. I'm an economic nationalist as much as anybody else. I would love for the products on our shelves to be American. But you have to get there. And the fact of the matter is, we're not there yet. We just aren't. I wish we were. I wish somebody, me, the president, anybody, could just magically snap the fingers and then there's enough beef on the shelves from American farms and American cattle for the prices to be low and the product to be American, and we'll all live happily ever after. But we're not there yet right now, and it's going to take time to get there, which Trump acknowledges in this Truth Social post. He says, we're doing this to give our beef herd some time to grow. So, what actually is the beef herd? How many cows do we have in this country that we can then turn into beef to eat? Thankfully, we actually have that number. And spoiler alert, it's not even close to being enough. So, this is the U.S. Department of Agriculture's own chart. Beef cow inventory in the United States. I believe this is up to January 1st. So it's fairly current. This is by year. It goes all the way back to 1920. And you can see here in 2026, we only have 27 million head of cattle. Now, 27 million is a big number, but not when you're talking about feeding a nation that has a population somewhere in the vicinity of 400 million people. That starts to look like a real slim amount of beef. And believe it or not, it is. Now, this is AI, so take it with a grain of salt, but what AI tells me, based on its own research, the United States nationally consumes and processes approximately 30 million to 33 million head of cattle each year. Now, let's assume that number is vaguely correct. We have a little less than 1 year's supply of beef cattle in the United States. That's a problem. We just don't have enough beef. We just don't. And I wish we did. Believe me, I eat a lot of beef. I like to have a steak a time or two a week, and I eat a lot of ground beef in various dishes. I love beef. It's expensive. I want it to be cheaper, and I want it to be American too. But there's a certain level of we have to get there first that needs to be taken into account. Now, ironically, the very people that have been complaining for months about President Trump not doing enough on the economy are now complaining about this. Sarah McGee, she's a Houston area wannabe Democrat House member. We've talked about her a bunch on the show. She's, in my opinion, for my money, she's not the prickliest cactus in the desert, if you catch my drift. Here she is replying to the Merriweather Farms tweet saying, the dark side of this announcement is that they want to put Texas ranchers out of business so they can use their land for data centers. It's the same thing they're doing to farms. This might be the dumbest thing I've ever heard a wannabe elected official say. I mean, the amount of stupid and just Trump derangement syndrome you have to have in order to say Trump is importing this beef so that we can build more data centers. You're just throwing buzzwords together. Listen, you might not like data centers. I frankly think they're cool and important and necessary. But regardless of what your take on data centers are, the idea that Trump is importing this beef so that we can build more data centers, I mean, I don't have the words for how stupid that is. No, that's a lie. I do have the words, but I can't say them because this is a radio show. Ultra P-shaped on Twitter put out what I think is a very good statement on this. He claims to be a rancher. I don't know. I'm not super familiar with this account. I just saw this. It popped up in my timeline. I thought it was interesting. So take this with a grain of salt. I just found it on the internet. But here's what Ultra P-shaped on X said about this. I am a rancher. Biden ordered any rancher with a federal contract to slaughter their herds and turn over their crops. I do not have a contract, many do. Our cattle need more time. From birth to market, a good 2 years. But we are already in over a year and a half. We need a few more months before we can slaughter so that what Trump did here helps everyone and the demand. I had a Rumble channel with all ranchers yelling at you all to pay attention to what Biden is doing, and no one was listening. So essentially, this was a Biden era problem that Trump is now having to deal with. Shock of shocks. But yeah, it makes a good point. Just a few more months, and we'll have more American beef that'll be ready to put on the market. Fantastic. Great. I don't know how true that is, but it sounds believable. I'd love for that to be true. And that seems to kind of about be what Trump has done, because according to the estimates that I've seen, this 300,000 metric tons of beef will last the United States about 44 days based off of the American consumption. So it's not like this is going to end the beef market because we're just importing infinite amounts of beef. This is a little over a month's worth of beef to bring the price down, frankly, before election time. Okay, let's close out by kind of wrapping all of this together. The Democrats seem to be upset. I think that tweet from Sarah McGee really exposes the fact that no matter what the Trump administration does, the Democrats are upset. The left, the radical left, is always going to be upset. There's never going to be a concession that the right or the Republicans or President Trump or just America in general makes to them that's going to make them happy. except, the complete destruction of the nation as we know it. Now, in order to get to that end goal, like that guy said in that clip that we played of their little DSA meeting, you really have to have a revolution in order to get what they want. And in order to get a revolution, you have to have everybody really upset. And that, I think, is one of the big reasons the Democrats seem to so often do things that just make no sense, that serve no one. Things like the offshoring of American business. Sure, it, provided some cheaper goods temporarily, but as we've seen, that was only a temporary benefit. And anybody who with two brain cells to rub together could have predicted even in the 80s that offshoring American manufacturing wasn't going to be a good idea. But they did it anyway because it allows for, over time, things to get worse and worse and worse and people to get madder and madder and madder. So anytime you try to solve those problems, the Democrats are going to try to stop you from solving the problems. They're going to try to make up a reason why solving the problem is actually worse than the problem itself. And the reason for that is they want you to be upset. They want you to be angry. They want you to feel like you have no options in the United States economy so that you'll become open to things like socialism and overthrowing the United States system of government. J.D. Vance recently spoke at a factory in Middletown, Ohio, where apparently his grandfather worked for a number of years. And I think he very eloquently made this point. The Democrats have been working for a very long time in the interests of everyone except the Native American population. And I don't mean the, feather in the teepee Native Americans. I mean blood and soil heritage American Native Americans. They've been working against the interests of the native populace of this country because if you can combine a really or sufficiently pissed off native population with a bunch of foreigners who hate the country anyway because they're radical Islamists, you can bring about a revolution. And that's why they've done, I think, a lot of the things over the last 20 to 30 years that are just frankly foolish. Here's J.D. Vance actually making that case in this speech. Take a listen to this.
Fortunately, JFK or FDR's Democrat Party. Hell, it's not even Bill Clinton's Democrat Party. This is the party of diversity quotas rather than opportunity for all. This is the party, the Democrat Party, of graduate students rather than the union and non-union workers who make this facility run. It's sometimes actually hard to understand, what do these modern Democrats actually stand for? But look what they say. Pay close attention, and they'll leave these little hints of what they actually care about. Now, El Sayed, this guy running for Senate in Michigan, he once argued, not too long ago, that criticisms of Sharia law were rooted in white supremacy. I'd love to go back in time and tell my papaw that there's a man who claims to stand for working people who says not only should we have Sharia law, but if you criticize it, you're a white supremacist. That's not my papaw's Democrat Party, my friends. Now, I served for 2 years in the Senate with Sherrod Brown. He was a friendly enough guy, but he was a man who claimed to represent this state, but never once raised his voice against Joe Biden's border crisis or against the inflation that was brought on by Joe Biden underinvesting and trying to destroy American industry. If you look at it at every step of the way, these Democrats have voted for foreign workers and fraudsters over American citizens and hard-paying taxpayers. They have voted for corporations who sent jobs overseas rather than good American businesses who invested in you, invested in your communities, and increased your jobs. Who do these Democrats put first? Everyone else. You know who the Trump administration puts first? Americans. You, my friends, that's who we fight for.
Great messaging from J.D. Vance, and a fantastic point that I think is 100% correct. The Democrats are just not interested in making the lives of the American people better because that directly hurts their agenda. Their long-term goal is to completely reform the society. You can't get the public support required to reform the society if people think the society is fine, if people think the system of government or the economic system, if they think all of those things are just fine, not even that they're great, if they're just fine, if it's just okay, if you know, there's maybe a prospect of making it even better, but you don't really have to, because as of right now, it's just fine. You're never going to get the public support, that bare 51% majority that you need to do something radical like a communist revolution. And so they actively make things worse. And they'll find excuses, they'll obfuscate, they'll blame shift so that you can't really tell, or if you're not super smart, or even if you're just outright dumb, you can't really tell that they're the ones doing it, but they're the ones doing it. The reason I play that clip is because it makes a very good example of the fact that the mainstream Democrat Party might not be, you know, as radical as the DSA, but they're pursuing the same goals, or at least they're not trying to stop the DSA from pursuing the same goals. There's nobody in the mainstream Democrat Party that's going out there and saying, I don't believe what these people believe. I don't want to be in a party with these people. They don't represent what I represent, and I'm working against them. The only example of that is maybe John Fetterman out of Pennsylvania. So they're a threat. All of them are a threat to just the long-term survival of the United States. Now, by contrast, the Republicans, at least most Republicans, are at least trying to actually make the economy better, to make our system of government better. They might not always be succeeding, I'll be the first to admit that, but they're at least putting in the effort, and they are having some results. Here's an example of this. Governor Abbott announces Amazon expansion in Austin. Greg Abbott announced Amazon has selected Austin as the site for a new robotics manufacturing facility. The multi-billion-dollar development will create 300 to 500 new jobs in manufacturing and engineering. He said, Texas is the new frontier for innovation. We congratulate Amazon on their expanded investments in Texas with the best business climate in the nation, easy access to global markets, and a deep pipeline of skilled talent. Texas offers advanced manufacturers and technology leaders unmatched resources to innovate and expand. Now, if you want an economy that actually improves, if you actually want the opportunity for wages and good jobs that keep up with things like inflation, this is what you need. You need things like factories to be built, big manufacturing plants, data centers. Data centers do mean jobs at multiple points in the chain. There's construction jobs. There's electrical jobs. I'm sure there's some weird computer nerd jobs out there that are going to be involved in that too. Even somebody to just sweep the floor of the data center. These are all jobs. And if we can get these foreigners out of our country and make sure these jobs go to Americans, we could be on the precipice of an economic boom thanks to things like data centers and factory expansion. And we'll have products here in the United States that are made by Americans for Americans and priced affordably for Americans. Democrats will find issues with all of this because that directly hurts their agenda. If you can go out and get a good paying job working at a data center or building a data center or any other type of big industrial facility, that makes it harder for them to sell you on the idea that the economy is fundamentally broken, that the American system is set up to screw you. And if you don't believe that the system is set up to screw you, you're not going to fall in line with a democratic socialist revolution. I'm Ethan Buchanan. This has been the Next Gen Report. We'll be back Tuesday evening on my X page for a live stream at _Ethan Buchanan. Check me out.